technical project manager is basically the person who wears different hats based on, what information we need to communicate to a certain set of stakeholders. Always start with eliciting the overall requirements, like what the client actually wants and what his need is.
Do I need to involve the other stakeholders, the developers, the architects, the QAs, everyone from the day one? I will gather the requirement, I will develop them, and then the testing will start. But if I'm involving the QA from day one, the testing has already started, no?
The main drawback was we were not able to include the overall feedback from the client. Like, for example, if there is one thing that we have provided to them, then we cannot go back and change certain things in that. So that was the major problem, because client was not involved from this whole overall process, and they were getting the things at the very end. And sometimes, it becomes shocking for them, this is not what we actually expected. And because we are developing each and everything for the end user, so if we are getting good response, then well and good. If we are not, then obviously there is some room for improvement that we should accommodate.
First, tell us what a technical project manager is and how that is relevant to a software delivery.
Okay, so if you ask about the role of the technical project manager, then it is somebody who has an overall experience about the project management, but he or she also knows how you have to drive things technically and have a good knowledge about it. From the very start till from the conception till the very end, when we are actually delivering the project to the end users, the project manager is the sole stakeholder who is actually in contact with all of the stakeholders and is working with all of the people. So he's the key person who has a good idea of all the relevant stakeholders, and since he's aware of all the stakeholders and the pulse of it, so he knows actually how to drive all those things from the very start till the end, so that we can actually deliver what is needed as a business need from the client's end.
Okay, so my question, and this is kind of a thing that I pondered upon. Throughout my career, I heard terms like software project manager, delivery manager, project managers, and this, I believe recently this term came up, a technical project manager, right? So as you said, that they possesses the technical knowledge as well. So how is it different from a project manager or a software delivery manager? Is it the same role? Are they doing the same thing, or there is some difference in these roles?
Okay, so I think that role actually varies from industry to industry. If we talk about the IT industry particularly, then I think this role is very crucial, because in IT industry, we are picking up the kind of projects where we are dealing with coding, where we are doing the automation, where we are running the whole software delivery process. So somebody who actually knows how to actually run this whole process, I think it's very important, because if you're leading a group of people, then it's very important that you should know what exactly they are doing. Otherwise, I think you'll not be able to lead them in a good or in a very efficient way. So
this is advantageous to have a technical person doing the delivery management rather than a simple delivery manager or a project manager.
Yeah, because for a normal project manager, the role basically surrounds around, you have to make sure that, we are delivering the project without taking care of, much of the technicalities that's going on in the project. But for a technical project manager, he is much involved with the developers because he has to take care of, any technical challenges. If the team is facing, he's also much involved with the relevant stakeholders like client and the management to ensure them, that what exactly is going on in the project. So technical project manager is basically the person who wears different hats based on, what information we need to communicate to a certain set of stakeholders.
Okay. So he or she is in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll go back a little bit. When we talk about software deliveries, if I try to define it in a way, anything that is software, which is produced as a software application, is a software delivery, right? Like if I'm building a SaaS application or an MVP or a CRM, any software application that I'm delivering through this process is a software delivery, and that is managed by a project manager or a software delivery manager or a technical manager, right? Is that right? Okay, perfect. And when we talk about software, you mentioned that there are different stakeholders involved, like developers, QA, I don't know. What kind of team we are looking at when we are talking about a software delivery?
Okay, so I think when we are dealing with any IT related project, then we have certain team members, like we have developers who are basically doing the coding and doing the actual work, and then we also have QAs with us who make sure that we have the right quality of a project in place. And if the project is large and there is some architecture involved as well, like for our product or for a certain feature, then we really have architect with us who can actually.
Sorry to cut you, but to have it streamlined, I have a project delivery. Let's say I have a SaaS application that I want to build, and I come to you for this delivery. Where would we start? I mean, the developers, the QA, everyone will be involved, but where will we start? You will be the first person to take the requirements, or will there anyone else who would take the requirements, or architect or whatever? What I want to know is that what is the team, and at what stages those team members with certain skill set are involved?
Yeah. So if we talk about like from the very start, then when a project comes to us, then we always start with eliciting the overall requirements, like what the client actually wants and what his need is. So we start with the requirement gathering. So from that particular phase, a project manager is involved with the business analyst who basically understands the overall requirements. So once the requirements has been elicited, then we try to jot it down somewhere so that we can overall lock the overall scope of the requirements. So from there, when the certain requirements are locked, then the developers actually start work on it. So developers come into this particular cycle when we start the execution actually.
So you said there is a business analyst and we need to jot down the requirements. Now, jotting down the requirements, there is a lot of debate, and I've been working with people some people wanted to have a like a formal SRS or a big document where they want to put everything in detail, like a software design document. But in other places, I work with people who wanted to do it on like story creation on Jira or something like that, which they said, and I also felt like more kind of a agile approach. So in terms of gathering the requirement, locking them in, what's the best approach? Do we need to create 300 pages, big documents with every single detail in it? Or do we need to be more agile in it? Okay, we have picked few requirements, we are going to build them. And the documentation part or jotting it down, you are writing them in Jira or some other tool or anywhere, but you're not that religious about the documentation as you would in, writing SRS or a software design document.
That's a very good question. I think jotting down the overall requirements is very important, whether you do it in a document or whether you do it in a Jira. The most important part is you jot it down somewhere so that we can actually get a sign off on those requirements. Previously, we used to create SRS and related documentation, but in the modern software development industry, what we are doing is we are doing the overall requirement elicitation in the Jira, and we are jotting down all of the requirements over there, and then all the stakeholders have access to it. They can review it, and we can get a formal sign off on it, and then we can start work on it. So it's not mandatory that we should create a certain page or software requirement document, and then there is a certain group of people who convert it into story, and then we should write it down. I think we should adopt what is efficient, and for that I think Jira or tools like that are available can provide a good platform where everybody can see what the overall requirement is, and they can overall also see the progress when the work actually starts on those particular items.
So this documentation becomes more of a collaborative thing. I think in past, people used to, someone who is writing the document, they have the document with them the whole time till it's complete or the sign off has happened. But nowadays, if you are doing it on Confluence or any collaborative kind of tool, then everyone is seeing what's happening. I can involve QA or developer or anyone who can see that document as well. So documentation become kind of a collaborative effort.
Yeah, that's very true. When I started my career, I started it as a business analyst, and we used to, write down the relevant documents. And what we used to do is used to write down, we used to pass it to the other stakeholders. Once that is reviewed, then we used to give it to the other stakeholders. So that's how, we used to follow the process. But I think that creates some lag when we are actually doing it, because the feedback loop gets very long. If somebody who wants to review it and want to give certain feedback, then you'll be getting that feedback after quite a long time. But I think with such collaborative tools like ClickUp, Jira we have available, you can write it down and everybody can see, everybody can pitch up their suggestions, and there are a lot of people who can come at the same time and can, update certain sections, and, we can come to consensus quite soon. So that's quite helpful.
That's good. So, okay, we have gathered the requirement, we have the tools. Now it's a very kind of, I've seen both versions of it. Do I need to involve the other stakeholders, the developers, the architects, the QAs, everyone from the day one of requirement? For example, if I'm sitting with a business analyst who is breaking down the requirement, who is doing the interviews and everything, do I need my SQA, software quality assurance guy, there as well, and maybe the developer as well? Do I need my team there from the day one, or they come in later parts of the process?
So once the requirements are jotted down, then I think all the stakeholders should be aware that what requirements are coming in, because as a different stakeholder, we have a different understanding of few things. Like if I'm eliciting requirement, or if a business analyst is somebody who is eliciting requirement, they'll be perceiving the requirements in a certain way. But an architect or a developer will see things in a certain different direction. We have to develop these things. So maybe we are not considering few prereqs that should be there. So it's very important that we should have one growing session once the requirements are elicited with the relevant team members, like with developers and with QAs, so that we can understand their perspective as well, so that we can make sure that they are also the ones who understand the requirements fully, and then they can execute it. Because what happens is, for example, if there is one feature that comes up, probably I'm seeing it in a very, business oriented role, that, okay, this is a feature and probably it will be quite easy to implement. But from an architect level, it involves, some database, some other servers and some other implementations, that we are not much aware of. So,
but there, I think your TPM, your technical project manager skill set comes in, because you are technical, but not that technical to a level of an architect. Or
we understand the overall requirements, but there are experts to each and every area. Like for DevOps, if I would say, then they'll analyze the requirements and perceive the requirements in a very certain direction. And for architect as well, because they have the experience in that particular area from different projects. So it's very important that we should gain the perspective of every stakeholder who will be involved in that. And similarly for QA as well, they should be involved from the very start, because they actually see things like they have to write the test cases. So probably, we are not seeing the positive and the negative impact of few areas, and they can have an impact or some ripple on other areas that we are going to implement, since they are testing the whole product or the whole, feature. So they know that, this new thing is coming up and I was testing this, so that this can have an impact on this. So we should keep this in consideration. So that's why it's important, to get the perspective of everybody.
Every stakeholder, they have their own say in documentation, in requirement breakdown, because if I'm seeing the requirement of a particular feature or an application from a business analyst's eye, that can be different from how QA or a developer is looking at it, because the developer or the person who is going to implement it, they would be thinking differently. Okay, I will have to create the database or create that kind of architecture. So that's important that you include your architects and technical team from day one and early in the process.
Yes.
Okay. And can it happen in a segregated way where you say, okay, now I have to, I've completed my requirement gathering, and next step is design. And by design, I mean it can be UI design, it can be architecting the application. Is it happening in a segmented way where every step, every part of the process is coming, and then the next step would start. Or as you mentioned, that I need to involve my QA from day one, right? In a hierarchical way, or in a step-wise process, I would say I will gather the requirement, I will develop them, and then the testing will start. But if I'm involving the QA from day one, the testing has already started, no?
Yeah, because I think in this modern era, we are focusing more on the test-driven development, where we are actually involving the QA from the very start, so that they should start writing down the test cases, and developers can also see those when they are developing, so that they should also keep in consideration those aspects. So I think these are some very key aspects that we should consider. So in terms of the overall flow that we are considering, like I mentioned, that first we need to jot down the overall requirements, and once that is done, then we need to do the grooming with all of the team that involves the architect, QA, and the relevant developers. And once that is done, then what we usually do is, like, once we get a sign off from them that okay, they understand the requirement, then we further do the analysis on the overall items, like, okay, now we have to actually analyze the overall implementation phase, and then we'll see, what other areas that will get impact on it.
I actually wanted to show you this diagram. This is again about educating the customer. This is what we put in our technical proposals. It's not our diagram, it's credit to someone else, but I think it gives you that figure. You are starting with the analysis, then the design, then the development, testing, and deployment, maintenance, right? So if I take this one by one, that means during my analysis part, I'm involving the project manager, the business analyst, maybe architect, but I'm not involving the QA.
Yeah, right? Once the requirements are jotted down, then we'll be involving the QA.
Then we'll be involving the QA. Okay, perfect. And okay, so that's good. That's good. Now, when it comes to delivering things, when it comes to releasing things, right? As we say that we are releasing a batch or a feature or something like that, versioning, you say it. But how we are, okay, so there are two terms which were, I think, in 2010s or maybe earlier, were kind of hot: agile development and iterative development, right? Prior to that, people were like more doing things more of a waterfall. And I think if audience don't know what waterfall is, maybe you can explain what waterfall is and what is this iterative and agile development is. Because the diagram we just saw, what's happening is each step happening. In analysis, I can assume, okay, it's a 3 years project and I am gaining or gathering all the requirements in first 6 months. In first 6 months, no development is happening. But that has changed, right? I will not be doing things like that. I will start my development from first month or maybe first week, and I will release it by feature. That's why we call it iterative development or something like that. What's your take on that, and what actually iterative or agile development is?
If you talk about the overall waterfall model that the projects or the industry used to follow previously, then it was basically a sequential model where we actually used to follow the software development lifecycle in certain phases. Once one phase is done, then we used to move to the other one. And once that is done, then we used to the other one. And there was no going back to the previous phase. So the main drawback was, like, we were not able to include the overall feedback from the client. Like, for example, if there is one thing that we have provided to them, then we cannot go back and change certain things in that. So that was the major problem, because client was not involved from this whole overall process, and they were getting the things at the very end. And sometimes, it becomes shocking for them, like, this is not what we actually expected. And so that was the waterfall process that we used to follow. And I think it's still applicable in few of the projects if the requirements are quite clear and if the projects are small. In that case, I think you can still follow that, but that totally depends on the type and the nature of the project and the industry in which we are going to apply it. Like, if I talk about some procurement related projects that are not much related to IT, where you have to set up certain things, and once those things are set up and the machinery or the hardware is there, then you'll be moving forward to the next step. And I think in that case, waterfall fits best. But if we talk about the IT industry, then I think for that, the requirements are quite evolving for the clients. They come up with a certain set of requirements, and and then they come up, okay, you guys have completed that certain module. Now we want some changes, and we feel like what you guys have done is good, but if you guys can accommodate these areas, then that would be great for us.
Why is that happening?
I think it's because of the overall changing industry. For example, if we are developing a certain website and we are coming with one POC that we are showing to client, and they're saying it, they're seeing it, and then they're seeing other models that are available and some good flashy websites that are also available there, then they'll probably pick few things from there, and then they'll tell you, okay, it would be good if we can make such adjustments in our website as well. So that is one reason, and I think feedback is quite important even if you're doing any type of project. It's I think that gives you an idea that your client is actually satisfied.
So the shorter the feedback loop is, the better.
Yeah. The shorter the feedback loop is, it's quite better, because you are keeping client in the loop, and once you get feedback from them, and if they are satisfied, then I think we can make the overall project a success. But I think framework is important, but we cannot say that we can fit agile everywhere. I think the framework needs to be there so that you should have a good structure. And once the structure is there, then you can put blocks in it based on the type of your project. Because every project is different and every client is different. We cannot, put the same process or the same framework for everyone, that, okay, we want to be agile, so we will apply agile, or what you can say, the overall Scrum model everywhere. I think that varies, and you need to trust on your intuition, what is best in that particular role, so you can actually...
That's interesting. Yeah. You are the first person who is talking about intuition in terms of applying a process, because I have kind of a negative feeling about this word agile, because when I have worked with a lot of project managers and delivery managers, and not only me, but a lot of people who are in business or who are running an operation, and when we go to them and say, oh, we are going to apply agile, they are actually, they have kind of a negative feeling about the word. And I kind of know why that happens, because previously some guy came in, told them, okay, we are going to go agile, and after 3 or 4 months or even a year, things didn't work out. They were worse than even before the waterfall method was working for them, right? So what is this agile thing? I still think that it's old enough that we shouldn't be, having confusion around it, but still I'm confused. So what is agile thing? Is it kind of a set process that we can implement? You mentioned intuition, which is very interesting to me, and I think that's how it should work. I cannot say, okay, this is for example, if I define a method like Scrum and say, okay, this is a framework that we need to implement, but Scrum is not working in every case. And then I'm going to blame the method. Okay, the Scrum is, it's not good, and Agile is not good. But the problem is not there. The implementation, maybe it was, or the interpretation of the method of the word or the philosophy was wrong.
Yeah, I think these frameworks just provide you the overall structure, and they're not fixed frameworks. You can always, play around and can see what fits best in your exact situation. For example, if we are working on a project and we feel like, this is something that we want to do in like 1 month, and we have the requirements in place, then I'll not suggest anybody to apply a Scrum model or an Agile model over there, because the project is very short. You already have all of the requirements, so you can go in a sequential model and you can accomplish it successfully. But in IT industry, the kind of projects that we are doing, the requirements are continuously evolving. We are getting the change request, enhancement request on every project that we are doing. So in that case, this is some framework that allows you to, accommodate the feedback or the overall changes that client actually request time to time. If we are not following Agile, then that means we are fixed with our structure and we are not allowing, any enhancement, and we have to do what has been committed. So clients really don't prefer such kind of rigid approach because they want to have changes time to time. So that's why most of the clients and the projects actually prefer that we should go agile, so that they should have some leverage that okay, if they come with some other idea, then it will be accommodated and the team is not fixed or rigid in that way.
So the agile or the agility of the team is their reaction time, if I put that right, is their reaction time to the changing environment, right? And the changing environment is not, it will happen eventually, because if you look at the industry, as you have explained, that things are changing. Now today, for example, if some person come to me and say, okay, implement this thing using ChatGPT API, right? And after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there are like 100 others LLMs released in the world. Now the client wants, okay, I don't want this, I want Google's one, right? Now the things are, I get that the things are changing very rapidly, and I feel like and I think the agility is to accommodating those changes, and it doesn't matter what kind of medium is there. Medium can be coming through, it can come through a client, or maybe you are working on your own product. So whatever the medium for that change request is, but you need to be agile enough to accommodate. Is that what agility is?
Yes, exactly. Because in agile process, you actually deliver things in the form of modules. For example, you guys have figured out like you guys will be delivering module after each month or after every 2 weeks. So for example, if I am delivering something to my client after like 2 weeks, although we have done what he requested, like, he want a certain feature in that way. But once that feature is in place and the end users are actually using it, they're not getting a good response just because, the user experience is not that good, or there is still, some room of improvement. So they'll actually get the feedback from their, end users as well. And then they'll, sit back and think, okay, what needs to be improved? So they'll give that certain feedback for the second iteration that we are going to run, and then we'll accommodate those changes in our second module. There's a possibility that, once we deliver the second module, there are still some areas of improvement, and then they'll get some feedback. So there is a whole loop that will continue, because we always learn when we get, feedback from even on our performance, or either on features or things like that.
So the medium and the stimulus, it can be anything.
Yeah.
And I like this example where we are running our own product, and we are, even for customers, we are launching a product, and the customer feedback or the client's feedback is really important. Like, for example, a social media application like Facebook, they are launching a feature every week or month or something like that, but the user feedback, alpha beta testing is really important. On feedback, they might be changing things, and if they are not agile enough to change those things quickly, they will fall behind.
Yeah, exactly. Because what exactly drives the success of a certain product or project is that the end user is actually liking it, because we are developing each and everything for the end user. So if we are getting good response, then well and good. If we are not, then obviously there is some room for improvement that we should accommodate. So
okay, that's good. Okay, now another problem, be it a 2-week release or a month release, when it comes to defining a scope, or I think initially when I asked you about what a software delivery is, it's you are delivering something, but that something cannot be vague, right? That something has to be very clear. I'm asking that question because in service-based agencies or teams who are delivering something for someone, or it can be someone's product, but the team who is delivering it, they need to understand the scope. That's why your business analyst or the specialists are there to gather the requirement. So how important or how difficult it is to lock that scope, to have that definition of done or acceptance criteria or whatever you call it, how to ensure that? Because I have seen so many conflicts happening around that. Even at OneKode, we are facing that. We were discussing prior to this podcast when we started about this as well. So I want you to tell our audience how to overcome this challenge of locking the scope.
I think that's the very crucial part, and a very significant part where we need to put a lot of effort to make sure that, all of the stakeholders are on the same page. Because sometimes you come across with certain people who are very technical, they overall understand what they actually need. But for some people, they're not much technical. They'll come to you and they'll define the overall business requirement, like this is what they actually need. Then we have to drive this whole process with them. Okay, you requested this and this will involve these particular features. So if you agree with that or not. So they also need to brainstorm at their side, like what they requested, it will involve these things. And sometimes you have to work with them to let them know, okay, this is what you have actually requested, because they're not much technical folks. So in that case, I think, especially in the second case where the clients or the customers are not very much technical or have not much idea like what exactly they need, it is really important, because if they're not much aware, then later if the scope and the requirements are not enlisted, then they'll come up with certain enhancement request and
and I think
change
that's
request.
where the conflicts are happening.
Yes.
Right, because they are coming to you, okay, we put this thing, we ask for this thing, but you are not delivering that thing.
Yeah.
And we are saying, no, this wasn't agreed upon, right? This is something you are asking now because our understanding was different.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So for that, I think we need to make sure that all of the requirements should be enlisted, and in any tool where you guys are jotting down the overall requirements and the acceptance criteria and the definition of done should be there, so that you can get a sign off from the client that okay, this is what you are expecting, and the relevant stakeholders can also review it from that perspective, like the developers and the QA, so that they can also analyze their effort in a certain way. Otherwise, what usually happens is they come up with a certain feature, and we estimate it, and then they mention that okay, but they were expecting certain other things in the feature that were not jotted down over there. So that takes a lot of time, and eventually we go in the time crunch. That creates a lot of other issues like technical debt, etc.
So when it comes to, for example, there is a client who wants to build some system. There is a login user story, and I say, okay, as a user, I want to log in, and there is email password and maybe social integration as well, social platform integration, Google, Facebook. Now, when we deliver this, client asks, where is the CAPTCHA, right? Or where is OTP? Or where is 2FA or something like that, right?
There's the non-functional requirement part that has not been discussed.
Kind of, they can come to you like they are kind of understood in modern applications. Whatever application I'm using, they have these things, and why aren't you providing them under? And you would know as a technical project manager that if I am going to apply 2FA or I am going to apply a CAPTCHA, that would require actual effort to implement that thing, right? So how to ensure that these kind of gaps are not happening in terms of scope locking and delivery?
Yeah. So I think that's also a very important part of when we are doing the analysis or when we are gathering the requirements. When we are gathering the requirements, we're not just gathering or jotting down the overall requirements that are the functional requirements. We also need to make sure that what will be the user experience, how the UI will look like, what are the non-functional requirements that are supposed to be there. For example, I think there are a lot of validations that we also need when it comes to UI. Like you talked about the login page and the password, then we need to ensure that, for password even, like there are certain validations that needs to be in place to have a stronger password.
Given thing, or should we jot them down and share?
We should jot them down as a non-functional requirement, so that there should not be any conflict.
There is no room for
ambiguity, and any such things. Yeah.
Perfect. Now I'm coming to a very controversial topic when it comes to software deliveries or project management. That is time. Right, the timeline. Now, I have worked in the industry for so many years on so many projects with so many project managers. I worked under them. I managed project managers, but I still am not able to define a perfect project delivery, right? Like for me or anyone in business, they would say, okay, the perfect project delivery is that on this date or the timeline that we define, we're delivering the high quality product or project, right? And what high quality means is that you defined a scope, like you mentioned, we need to ensure that the functional and non-functional and everything is getting documented and, coming in the process. Okay, if we are delivering that scope, that is one thing. But in what time we are delivering that scope, that is important, right? If somebody delivers me a project which I was expecting in 1 month and they deliver it in 1.5 months, then I would call it a failure, or I would say this delivery was not successful because you maintained the quality, you delivered all the requirements that I wanted. We wrote everything from the day one and the quality is good and everything is good, but you are delivering me it 1 week late or 2 week late, right? So how important it is, and how actually I want you to tell us the science behind it. Is there a perfect delivery? Does it exist that I can complete a delivery within time without, overburdening the resources, over consuming the resources, and still maintaining the high quality as well?
Okay. So I think that's a very, important aspect that you have touched. I would say whenever we are talking about the software delivery is not just about, delivering the software at a particular date. It's all about we are delivering the project that is needed by the client for the end users in a specific time, in a specific cost, and with good quality as well. All these factors are required. Now, how we can, basically evaluate, how much time will be required. So for that, I think the basic understanding of what exactly is needed is very important, because once you understand that what exactly is needed, then you will be able to estimate it properly. For example, if I have no understanding of, how this login feature or how this particular website or page, exhibits, or how much time each feature will take, then I'll not be able to, will be able to provide the overall estimate of it. So first of all, a high level understanding is really important. And based on that, we usually provide a high level estimates to the client that based on these overall requirements, this is the ballpark figure that we are intending, to achieve. And with these number of resources, we are intending to do that. If a client wants a certain project or a feature in like 2 months, and it's a big project and we cannot do it even with 4 resources, then obviously we'll have to, hire more people to do that particular job. Then that means instead of 4 people, I have to basically allocate 8 people over it, because I want to do it in a very specific time that client has mentioned. So I think it's really important that we understand the overall requirements and we estimate it based on that. And once estimated, then obviously we can evaluate like how many resources or developers will be required and what will be the right fit based on the tech stack that we are actually intending to, do this project with.
I'm seeing multiple things here. One you mentioned the clarification of scope, which is important. We discussed it earlier. Okay, you have the absolute clarity about the scope. Now the estimation part, you want to estimate it. Who does the estimation?
The developers who will be doing that along the architect.
There are other stakeholders as well who are working on that project. Shouldn't they be involved in estimation as well, like the business analyst, like QA, because they are working on the project as well? Should they be part of estimation as well?
So business analyst will not be part of the overall estimations. It will be mainly be developers and the QA, because these are the ones who are going to execute the project in terms of the overall development, and then there will be QA effort involved in terms of, the automation that they'll be doing, in terms of manual testing they'll be doing. And we'll also have to always keep a cushion for the unknowns, like for any technical debt that comes up. There sometimes comes a lot of issues when we are trying to achieve a certain timeline.
But that is not done by developer or the engineers, right? That is done by you. It's your job to see, okay, if the QA and the developers are giving me 1.5 months in total, then you are adding a room for the technical debt and margins as well.
So we have a certain criteria when we are actually doing the estimation. What we do is we first figure out the overall technical part, like this is the overall time that we'll be needing in the analysis and in the overall backend and the front-end development, and this is the overall time that the QA will be needing. And then there is a certain question that we always keep for any bugs and for any technical debt that comes up. That's like 25 to 30%, so that if we go short on time and there are issues that comes up, then we should not, rush and hurry to accomplish each and everything. And, in that hurry, we always make mistakes. So we always have to, keep the right cushion to make everything happen in a right proportion, actually. So we do it, in discussion with the developers and the QA to make sure that, we are not missing any point that they have in consideration, or probably the technical project manager have in consideration. So it is really, concluded in consensus with the relevant project team, I would say.
I think, but from the process perspective, that is perfectly fine. I want to ask people who are going to actually work on this, right? But another problem with that, which I have seen, is the estimation itself can be wrong, right? No matter how well the documentation is and your breakdown is, but there is always going to be human error when I'm trying to estimate a thing only based on the time variable. And for that, I believe I heard this story and saw it in practice, the story points. Now, the story points is when I heard it first time, and a lot of technical project manager or scrum masters told me that this is actually, encompassing both the time and the complexity of the task itself, which I think a lot of us don't understand. And it looks like a very complex kind of concept. So what's your take on that? First, I would like your perspective. If you could put in some simple words that we can understand, that would be great. And how story points can help you execute with better prediction of the delivery timelines.
Okay, so I'd say that the overall estimation technique actually varies from, team to team. For example, if I'm doing the story pointing and your team is doing story pointing, then you probably have a different measures that your team is keeping in consideration while they're doing story points. So it's very important that all of the team members who are doing the story pointing or the estimation should be on the same page and have the same consensus. Like, they are considering the same type of variables when we are actually doing the story pointing. Some people actually do the relative story pointing, so that totally depends. If your team is on the same page, like, okay, these are the variables that they have to consider, then I think the estimation can be more accurate. And usually when we are doing the high level estimation, then we usually keep the overall complexity, the overall time, and the unknowns factor as well. Because there are a few things that we only analyze and evaluate when we are actually working on it. For example, if we have to use a certain third-party tool, but we are not sure yet, which third-party tool will fit best in that particular approach. So we'll keep this variable as unknown, and we'll keep certain, factor that, will keep its complexity high, because we have to figure out the unknowns. And even if we have figured that out, then probably, it can bring some more challenges with it. For example, I have to choose one tool for integration, or for some payment gateway that's already available in market, but I'm not sure which payment gateway I should use for my application. Then I'll have to research, I'll have to see the pros and cons, and even if I choose one, then probably after using it I get to know that this is not a good fit for my application. So yeah, I think all these factors are very important, and it's very important that we should jot down all those measures that we should consider for estimation. So I think if that is in place and every team member is on the same page, then we come towards a better consensus when we are doing the story point.
Again, I'm saying a couple of things here. One is, okay, the story pointing, I feel like that what you are suggesting, that it is relevant to how the team is doing it, right? For example, if I have team A, which has been working with me for a couple of months, I would be better at, or this team would be better at estimating their things or deliveries in story points, and then I'll be able to predict, okay, what's the team velocity and how many story points they are burning, and I'll be able to give some kind of prediction. That's one thing. The other thing is, now the other stakeholders, and sometimes business stakeholders and clients, and they don't know about story points, right? And your team knows, and the team velocity, these things you know. Now, I want you to predict or give me an estimation in months or days or dates. Give me the dates, right? Now, as a business person, if I want to launch a product in a couple of months, I would want dates from you, right? Now, what's the process of translating those story point estimation with your team, which you know very well, to and mapping it to a date or in number of days for some business stakeholders or who is interested in dates?
Okay, so I would say these are, whenever we are doing the story points, we are actually providing a high level estimates. Like we should not map it with a number of days. For example, if somebody is doing a 5 story point, then I cannot say that this will be done in like 5 days or 2 days, because it has a lot of other variables that can take some time, like the unknowns that I have mentioned. So it's very important that we should consider that once we have done the high level estimates, then it doesn't mean that we have actually evaluated the overall number of days in which we will be able to accomplish. It can take less, it can take more. So we have to keep that factor in mind. So when it comes to the fact that the business stakeholders or the management sometimes need the dates, like in which time you can actually do that, we can provide a ballpark figure by mentioning certain considerations that these are the variable factors and these can take this much or this much time, but we cannot exactly say that we'll be able to achieve it. We can provide a ballpark figure, but we cannot commit to certain items if there are unknowns. If the requirements are fixed and everything is clear, and if the project is of that nature where we know everything, then that's a different story. But I think in most of the project that we are doing in IT industry, we have to consider that there will be certain challenges and unknowns that we'll have to cater. So yeah, in that way we can just provide a high ballpark figure, not the exact dates.
So you can tell, okay, this can be delivered between 1 month and 1.5, but don't give the exact date, right? Okay, and then on that, any person can evaluate or
Yeah, they can set their own milestones based on that. Yeah, it can be done early if we don't face those challenges, then it can be done late based on the factors that I mentioned.
So the unknowns, if we have to implement something we haven't done before in the team and we are trying to estimate it in terms of story point, and I think we were discussing about spikes. What's your take on that?
I think there comes a lot of features in your project where you're not sure about what exactly is the requirement is, or even the client is not sure. They just come up with a feature because this is what the business actually demands, or this is what their actual client is actually demanding. So in that case, you actually have to figure out what exactly is the requirement is, and that's something that's totally new to you as well and to your client as well. So in that case, I think both the parties needs to put a joint effort where you guys can identify the overall requirements for that particular feature. And once those requirements are in place and those stories are groomed, and that okay, now this is what we have analyzed from this particular spike, and this is what we'll have to conclude in our implementation, then we will proceed with such kind of stories. So in such kind of stories, usually the spike or the overall analysis takes more time as compared to the actual implementation, because it's more about the research and less about the development. So once you know what you have to do, then I think rest of the work the developers can cater.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Another important thing, I think this is really challenging for a lot of project managers and delivery managers, because they are working with so many people with different skill set, and everyone is doing a certain kind of thing. Like a developer is, they can have a very good technical aptitude, and there are SQAs, but there are also business stakeholders as well. So how challenging is it to manage it all, to have the good communication, to have the collaboration? How challenging is it?
So that depends on the overall team you have. Sometimes it gets very challenging because you never know, what kind of team you're going to get for a certain project. Like sometimes you get a project where there are certain, developers involved that are from different tech stack, and then there are some architects involved because the project is complex, and then you have to do the automation as well, and then there are certain QAs involved. And since, we are working in this era where most of the work is remote, so, some of the teams are basically based in different countries, so you also face that challenge as well, that the time zone is basically different. So in that case, most of the time we face the challenges related to the miscommunication, the misunderstanding, because all of the team is not there at one place. So I think in that particular case, communication is very, very crucial, because you need to make sure that all of your team members is on one page, because eventually they are, working towards one goal. And if they don't have the same understanding, then, that creates a lot of problems. So how we really resolve is, like, we ensure that we have a proper channel established between the team members where they are coordinating with each other on daily basis, to make sure that, every team member is aware, like, what other team members are doing. You should have a very transparent and, good communication with your clients as well, so that they should have confidence in you. Like, this is the team with which I'm actually working, and, they know the overall business case. And then also comes the rest of the management and the stakeholders within your company as well. You also need to, keep them on board that, this is what's going on. This is our team. They're working on these things. And then we're also gaining the confidence of client as well. And we can bring more business and more projects as well. So it's really important that the communication should be strong. And I think technical project manager or delivery manager is the person who can fill this gap, basically, because they're the ones who are coordinating with all of the stakeholders. They know the pulse of, each team, like, how to deal a certain team based on their strong points or their, negative points, and we have to deal it that way. But yeah, if the communication is strong and good between different teams, then I think that's the key, and you can ace the project.
In companies or in software delivery teams, I have seen two things happening. One is your delivery manager or your technical project manager or whoever is working in the capacity of a delivery, they are more concerned about delivery because their own stakes are everything is depending on their delivery of the project. They have assigned team, but they need to deliver it. But there is a lot going on in terms of my technical lead or someone I'm working with. For example, to simplify this thing, if you are doing a software delivery, you know that a single person or a single tech stack or technical expertise won't be able to deliver it, right? In any software, you would need a database engineer, an architect, a programmer, a quality assurance guy, UI UX people. Then you would also need business analyst, technical writer, all of them, right? And all of these skill set, they normally have their own teams or shells within the company as well. Like the engineering or development team, they have their own pool. UI UX have their own pool. So they are coming from different departments under you and, coming together as a scrum team or whatever you want to call it and deliver this thing as a single goal. Now, your goal is to deliver the project, and sometimes I've seen this happening that a lot of these guys stop liking the project manager, right? Because they would say, okay, this person is only interested in getting the delivery. I can go to my technical lead, and my technical lead is a very good person. He leads me, he helps me, he solves my problem. This person who is even, called technical project manager, he is unable to help me with my technical problems. I have to go to my lead. And in that regard, the problem actually that happens is kind of a leadership versus the management, right? And you would see a lot of quotes over the internet that, okay, this is leadership, this is this is management, and management is somehow bad and leadership is good, right? Everybody likes to be a leader, everybody likes leadership. So how challenging is it for a project manager, program manager whose goal is to deliver this? All his concerns are regarding the delivery, but he also need to manage people as well, right? How challenging is it for a technical project manager or for you to work with people like that?
I think that's a very good question, because as a technical project manager, you are working with different set of teams who are working with you just to make sure that we are delivering what is actually needed. So in that case, I think collaboration is very, very important, because if you have a good collaboration, if you're making sure that you are syncing with your relevant team members on the daily basis, and what exactly they're doing, what exact challenges they are facing, and you are bringing value to them in terms of helping them ensure that if they are facing any challenges, then you are the person who can resolve any blockers that they are facing. For example, sometimes we have to coordinate with different departments to get certain things done. For example, if we have to do a certain deployment, or if we have any infra related issues, then we have to involve DevOps. We have to tell them, okay, these are the issues and we need your help in that certain area. So they should know, your team should know that what value you are bringing, and if they see that, obviously they'll trust you,
and they should be able to rely on you.
Yeah, they should be able to rely on you, because for an architect and for a technical lead, they can only solve your technical issues. But for a technical project manager, he is basically the leader who will help you solve any kind of issues you are facing, even if it's a team related issues or any issues that is blocking you to get your job done. So yeah, I think as long as someone is bringing value, everyone can
Should
see
you
that.
have one-on-ones with your delivery team members as a project manager, or should you
Definitely.
leave that to team lead?
Definitely, you should have it, maybe on a bi-weekly basis or on a monthly basis, but you should connect with them just to check their pulse, like how they're doing, how they're feeling, because we do daily scrums, we do the daily cadence with clients as well and with team as well, but in daily calls, not everyone mentions the challenges that they are facing. So knowing the pulse of the team is really important, through which you can actually ensure what measures needs to be done to improve the overall quality of the team, or to bring more collaboration in the team.
This brings me to another interesting thing. I know that it is very important for any leader to have emotional intelligence, but is it important for technical or project or delivery managers as well?
Definitely. If you are working with people, then I think
you're working with a lot of people, right?
So in that case, I think emotional intelligence and empathy is something that you should have. If you will not be able to understand what they're going through and what exactly their challenges are,
delivery manager.
then you can use an AI tool for that. No human is required in that case.
Yes, perfect. That's good. Another important thing when it comes to delivery, I have worked on this with a lot of engineers, is automating things, right? When we talk about efficiency, we want that things should happen on their own, right? Like we talk about CI/CD and automating everything. How important it is for a team to do that automation. Now, I know certain things can be automated and a lot of work has been done. For example, your deployments and your testing and everything, you can write tests and everything like that. But in what other parts we can do automation? For example, when you start taking requirements, like business analysts are involved and stuff like that, you can't automate that, right? You need to involve a person and to do that stuff. Or is there a possibility of that kind of automation as well?
Okay, so when we are talking about automation, I think it can be applied to certain areas. Like you have mentioned, we can automate the cases so that whenever we are doing a deployment or whenever we are releasing a new build, then we can have a certain set of automated cases that we can execute to ensure that we have a stable build. But apart from that, I think automation can be applied to certain other areas. If you are collecting a certain number of cases or a requirement from a certain tool and you're doing it manually for certain features, then you can jot down or write down some script through which you can actually do it. So you actually have to figure out based on your project, like which areas can be automated and how you can actually remove the overall manual effort that you're putting into. Like in terms of generating the reports that we are sending to management, there's a lot of areas that can be automated where you don't have to go on certain Jira reports or certain other areas and have to collect the information manually. So wherever I think it can be applied, it should be applied, so that we can, overall remove the manual effort. Like there are certain tools that are available that can better help you. Previously, we used to do the manual security audits that we used to do through certain teams that we actually had available. But now we have good tools, like we have Sonar, through which we can actually we can integrate it, and then we can see the overall issues that we are facing. So that provides us a good picture. So I think we should utilize technology wherever we can, so that we can overall minimize the overall human effort and can apply it effectively to those areas where it is actually needed. So definitely
Automation is going full efficient and reducing human involvement, the manual involvement, where I would have to wait for a person to come in and do this, and for example running a test case or something like that. Okay, we did automation, we had the tools, we have Selenium and tools like that, we implemented automation through tools and we achieved that. Now with the introduction, or I would say boom, of artificial intelligence, how is that going to affect or enhance the processes? Because automation is doing that, right? Automation has done that, but how I can use artificial intelligence to enhance it even further? One example that comes to my mind is, still you will have to sit with your client or whoever is giving you the requirements in an interview to gather those requirements. Now, can I have some kind of AI tool which asks that person all the interview questions and gather the requirements and give me the document, or document the user stories? That can reduce a lot of human effort, and it can be efficient as well.
So in fact, there are a lot of AI tools that are available that we now integrate with our WebEx Go and with Teams as well, through which we can take the meeting notes. But still, I think we need a human factor to actually basically understand like whatever is applicable, because we cannot make sure that the context is there whenever we are jotting down the overall requirements from an AI tool. So we obviously need a human to make sure that whatever we are writing is in context of what we are discussing, so that we can make sure that this is what is the right information. Because if I'll give you an example, like I'm using certain AI tools to jot down my meeting minutes or things like that, but when I go and look back to the overall meeting notes, then I remove some of the points because they are missing some of the context. So there are I would say certain algorithms that are in place, but it's still missing few of the areas that you as a human can ensure is better. But obviously I think we should utilize it, but we should make sure that we are providing the right information based on that. And since you talked about AI, so I think I would like to emphasize on that fact that although we are using AI in multiple areas, like we are using it when we are doing coding, when we are doing the automation, so that is helping us a lot, like in terms of identifying the overall issues in the code and in the cases. But still I think a human touch is required. For example, if we are doing automation and we have executed an automation suite, but a human needs to be there to make sure that whatever is failing, is it something that is valid, or there is some error to it. So I think there should be a mix of both to overall analyze and make sure that we are doing a successful overall flow that we are running over it.
So this is one of my favorite questions I ask everybody. There is zero artificial intelligence. When we go back a decade or two, we don't have anything that is done through AI, right? Like you need to get the requirements, do it on your own. But now we have moved a lot in, we have built these GPTs and LLMs and those kind of tools. How much it has reduced the human effort in project management or technical project management? Like, is it 10%, 20%, 50%? And how long will it take to get it to 100%? Or will it ever go to 100%? Like, no human involvement. I come to you, I come to a portal, I talk to an AI, and it will gather the requirements, deliver me the project, and that's it.
I'll say that AI has already, disrupted this industry. There's a lot of significant improvements that have came up, and there is a lot of effort that has been reduced. Previously, we used to make plans on a certain planner, and we used to do it all manually with effort. But now I think we have certain templates available where we can just put a certain data, and we have, the relevant information available. And apart from that, when we are jotting down the requirements, we used to, make the templates ourselves, jot down all of the requirements in the document. But now I think ChatGPT and other AI tools are available that are facilitating us a lot. So in terms of facilitation, I think it has come a long way, and it will go a long way. There will be a lot of improvements that we will see. But I'll not say that it will overall, it will overall reduce or eliminate the human need from that picture, because I think a human element is there, because the humans are generating this overall tool and overall technologies. So our brain power supersedes everything. It cannot, replace it, or it can be replaced by the AI. So a human will be there, but they'll obviously get facilitated by the AI tools that are available.
I think I've seen tools like, I know that they are not mature enough, but I've seen tools like AI-based application generation or application creation, like generative apps, right? You would call them. And I can go to this tool and write my prompts. Okay, I need a website like this, and there would be a banner with this text, with these buttons. And like, you would tell your requirements to a business analyst or a person who would develop a software for you. So I am telling this to an AI bot, and it's taking all the requirements, and then it is generating a website for me, which is pretty amazing, and it works. It's not like that it's generating something which is not usable. It works. I still don't exactly get what I need, but I get something. So I think we have moved a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I think the work that we were doing like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I think we are totally, doing the work in a different direction. Now we are not wasting our time on something that can be done through an AI tool or, some automation script or, tool that is already available. We are now putting our effort in a more significant or important things that cannot be done without a human. So definitely, the overall approach towards the work has been changed.
Okay, that's good. So, thank you, Nosheen, for your insightful discussion. A lot of people, a lot of project managers who are coming into this field, they are new, they are starting their careers in project management, especially software project management. What's your advice to them at this stage with all this technical, facilitations, the AI and everything, the automation? What's your advice to them?
Okay, so with this emerging technologies that we are seeing nowadays, I think adaptability is the key. We need to understand that, the technology will be changing, and we have to understand what is the requirement of the current time, and we have to adapt it in a certain way. So I think we need to keep this factor in our mind that, we should adapt whatever, the changing requirements or whatever the industry needs. And apart from that, I would say that, we should have this thing in our mind that we should stay curious, like always, because whenever you want to know how these things will be done and how this can be done in a better way, you'll always stay one step ahead of industry and on the rest of the things. And last but not the least, I think we need to make sure that, in this industry specifically and in project management, communication should be, strong with all of the stakeholders. If that is strong, then you can ensure good expectations, you can set good goals, and, you can align all of the stakeholders, even if there are some risks and there are some challenges. because they'll know that, you made them aware, and, you'll ace through it because they have been involved in this whole loop. So I think these are the 3 key factors that we should keep in our mind.
I think you have given advice to the new project managers. So thank you so much, Nosheen, for appearing on this and discussing those things with us. So if I try to wrap this up, the project management or this role requires good communication, and I believe a standard procedure. You need to be very sure of what you are doing, which I think you explained every step of we presented that diagram at the start of the SDLC, and we have covered almost every step, how to work there, how to gather requirements, how to log scope, and covering technical challenges or team challenges in communication and stuff like that. So I think it was a good session. Before we conclude this, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers about project management or software delivery management that you can share?
So regarding project management and software delivery, I think there are a lot of things that are evolving. There are a lot of frameworks that are coming up based on the industry we have and the projects we have. So I'd just like to add that, you should never be afraid of trying new things, because you are basically a good judge of what can be applied based on the industry and on the project you are actually working. So it's really important that, whatever you think is best, let's just try that out, because I think that's the key to success. If you'll just follow the overall processes and the things that are established and will be afraid of trying new things, then I think that's where you put a stop to yourself. So always, I think, try to figure out new things, and let's just try to implement it, because you never know what works best unless you try it. So, and that would be my advice.
And I believe it applies to every aspect of life, right?
Yep.
We take things by the book and we say, okay, this should be done in this particular way, and then we stop thinking our own thoughts or applying our own thoughts, and things become stagnant and we are unable to find solution by the book, right? So it's a really good advice. So thank you, Nosheen, for appearing and giving us your time. So I think we're done.